Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Analytical Perspective. I am Farrah Moses, and this episode of Analytical Perspective will be about Grownish. We are currently at Season 4, Episode 7, A Piece of Light, which was totally different from the last two episodes because it did not continue on the police brutality or on the Black Lives Matter subjects. It actually started to begin a new subject of starting your life as an adult after college. Okay, we know that none of these guys are out of college yet, but they're officially now halfway through their senior year and they have to take internships to finalize what their next career move will be. In the beginning of this episode, we learn that Zoey has an internship with Esme, a fashion designer who she looks up to. While she is being an intern at Esme, she is still making her designs. And one day, Esme wanders over and sees her design. Now, Esme gives her props on the design, and that's the last time we see it until something else is revealed about Esme. But continuing on with Zoey, we see Zoey go into Esme's office and we see Esme is very particular about things. You know, she buys a cake pop, but she doesn't want to eat it. It automatically goes into the trash can. And she talks to Zoey about this white guy who is wearing a design that is similar to a design that she displayed about 3 or 4 years ago. So Zoey starts to talk to her about cultural appropriation and, you know, how do you really put a value on something that is not intellectual property. We find out that Esme has really held on to Zoey's words about reparations and cultural appropriations and valuing your property when you're creative property, that she has basically asked for reparations, and Zoey finds out because she's actually happy. She doesn't know what's going on, and she's like, oh, let me click to see what this article about, and she's upset. She's upset because she's finding out that Esme is taking her exact words and using them to benefit her point of why reparations should be given and why creative property should be given a value so that creators do not feel like their concepts are stolen. So while Zoey is discussing whether this article is really all her words, we learn as viewers that they're really Aaron's words. And Aaron discussed it with her while they were eating out chimichangas, and Zoe basically tells Aaron, well, you know, Esme stole from the both of us then. That's not how it works, Zoe, but very good comeback, I would say. But we also learned that Aaron is about to teach his first class because him and the other TA have switched. So he's about to teach his first class. And I'm going to continue on Aaron on a little side path. Right now I'm going to continue with Zoey. So with Zoey, she is trying to figure out what's next. She goes into work, still upset about Esme telling people about reparations for their creative fashions. And when she goes to work, she actually sees her jacket up, already designed, already put together. And she learns that Esme said that she came up with this concept and that the Z on this jacket, which Zoey had talked to Esme earlier about the Z meaning Zoey, now means Generation Z. So now Zoey is kind of fuming. And she tries to figure out where does she go from here. Now she does a lot of things between now and the end of the show, meaning she tries to talk to Esme about it. about the design, hoping that Esme would give her credit. Esme makes it seem as though she's going to give her credit and doesn't. She also confides in Nomi, Luca, and Anna about the design, and they all give her different critiques of how they feel that they would handle the situation. Nomi and Luca are basically on the safe side, saying that you need to confront her and ask for your due credit, while Anna, as usual, is conservative. She's basically telling Zoey that you can't afford to lose this internship because if you do, you will not graduate. The final synopsis of what Zoey plans to do is basically decided when Zoey goes into Esme's office one more time to basically confront her. And when she goes into Esme's office, she looks on the wall and she sees Esme in different photos with different white people. And she's the only black person. And she decides to just let it be, let it go, because she doesn't want to tear down another black person. And she explains it later to Anna that she tried her best to confront Esme and to get her credit or her props due. And she realized that there was a lot of past and a lot of obstacles in Esme's journey that made it difficult for her to be this top of the line fashion designer. And she seen that there were a lot of white people that were in the photos and a lot of white people that she really had to compete with just for her to stand out. And she doesn't want to be the person who basically is bringing another black person down and confronting them on the same thing that Esme is complaining that white people do. Lastly, at the end, towards like the last 2 or 3 minutes of the episode, we learn that Luca has done the work for Zoey. Basically, Zoey has not went back to Luca to tell her what her decision was. So Luca went and made that decision because he's also someone studying fashion and a designer in his own right. And he calls out Esme and tags Zoey in his tweet or in his message and shows Zoey's design and Esme's design, and this basically says that they're both the same thing. And that basically was Zoey all put together. This episode was very Zoey heavy, and a lot of the things we could have went without because they were just a repeat of Zoey trying to confront Esme and not really doing it. I'll give more opinions on it towards the end of the episode. So moving on to Aaron. Aaron is a TA. He is going to teach. And in him going to teach, he can't get the kids' attention. He can't get the students' attention. And he's feeling very defeated. So he decides to ask these 2 girls onto the side that are looking at a phone and laughing, what's so funny? In him asking what's so funny, they tell him that you don't want to know. He says, yes, I do want to know. I want to know what the big joke is. And they tell him that they have made a webpage or Twitter or whatever about his sweater. Aaron, being ashamed, he decides that, okay, I'm going to take off my sweater vest and be in my white t-shirt, which the students, once again, ridicule him for being in the white t-shirt and doing the same thing over that they had done when he was in the sweater vest. So Aaron decides to take off the white t-shirt. Now he is totally shirtless, and he realizes that he's made a mistake because the kids are still doing the same thing that they were doing when he was wearing the t-shirt and when he was wearing the sweater vest, and he doesn't know where to go from here. The next time we see Aaron, he is with the professor that he is a teacher's aide with, and he realizes that he is not effective in getting the attention of students. So he asks the professor, I don't know what to do. And professor basically is mind blown and just concentrates on, well, I wonder, could I do this bottomless or could I do this shirtless? And telling him, you could probably get away with it if you wear chaps, but don't turn towards the blackboard. And he also replies to Aaron that he has had a complaint. So what he's going to do is not totally fire him or dismiss him from being a TA, but he's going to point him to the midnight class. The last scene that we see of Aaron, he is at the midnight class, and we see that he has a bunch of unpredictable and, I would say, basically unclassified students. He has the first years who applied late, he has a prostitute, and he also has the gay fathers. He has a great assortment of people, and he, in the back of his head, is hoping that whatever he is trying to preach to them or give them knowledge about, that they will fully internalize it, because the first class he had did not want to internalize Malcolm X. They rather meme him. So there was one scene with Vivek, and he was talking to Jazz about all the cleaning that he does and how that the women that he live with are way dirtier than the people that he has to clean for his community service. So I'm glad to see Vivek, because that was the first time I've seen him in a few episodes. He wasn't in the last two. We haven't seen him since the whole debacle with his dad and everything like that. But continuing on with Jazz, since I've already done Zoey and Aaron, she was pivotal to this. Jazz really hit on a point that I've tried to reach out to people and hit on for the last couple of weeks. Basically, getting therapy. We noticed that Jazz in episodes earlier that she was discussing with a track mate that how did he miss a season, and he was telling her, yeah, he didn't lose his scholarship or anything because he was in therapy. He actually had a medical excuse, so they had to continue giving him his scholarship, and Jazz decided to take that on. So at first she is giving a story from Step Up to, and then she becomes normal, I would say, or she becomes more open. And she tells the therapist that, you know, things are not the same for her. And she doesn't know why she doesn't feel joy in what's going on in her life currently, because she's not good enough for the Olympics. Her sister made it to the Olympics and is not there, so she's there by herself. She doesn't have her boyfriend anymore to lean on and for emotional support. So she's just like, she's not good enough for anyone. She's not good enough for the world, and it's just breaking her down. And I really felt that. I really did. Those were the three things that basically happened in this episode, and I'm going to give you my opinion because I'm trying to keep this review short because it wasn't a lot to go into, but there are some things that I want to go into. And the first one is about Jazz. I wish they would have concentrated a little bit more on Jazz's situation, because that situation is the situation of most people. Um, you have a lot of people who don't feel like they're good enough. You have a lot of people who are forced to either grow up early or have to learn how to acclimate to certain things when they're mature. And there's a lot of people who don't know how to manage it. And we've seen people, celebrities, talk about their mental health, and we've seen some people succumb to their mental health. And I, one, am one of those people who suggests that others get medical attention in any kind of way that they can, whether it's getting a psychiatrist, whether it is getting a psychologist or a therapist or a social work, any of those things to better your mental health. Because there are a lot of people who are losing their lives, a lot of children who are losing their lives because it's hard acclimating. It's hard going from one position in life to another position in life. And effectively, when you graduate high school and go to college, you're moving to a different position in life. And then once you get to your senior year, you're moving to a whole different position in life. Yeah, there are going to be some people who fall back and go back to live with mom and dad, but most people end up getting their own apartments, searching out for their careers, finding their careers, and actually having to take care of themselves. Actually not having those factors of love being around, someone having to say, "Are you okay? I love you," and things like that are important. So if you're moving from one facet to the next, you might not know how to acclimate. Now, with that said, I'm not going to say that everyone has depression where it will last for a lifetime. All of us go through some semblance of a depression, but some of it is just seasonal. Some of it is just for the transition into your next step in life. So I suggest if you feel overwhelmed and you feel like you need to actually talk to someone, please do. Don't let the stigma stop you. If you need help beyond that, please seek it. Okay? It's better for you to seek it than for you to rely on feeling that you can help yourself. And I don't want anyone to feel as though they are alone because there are a lot of people who seek help. And it might not just be on the fact of they're sad or they don't feel good enough. It might just be on the fact of they don't know what the next step is. They've burned their wills out. They've tried to reach another step or another restructure their life and they just can't get there. That is basically what I have on jazz. Okay? And if we need to have a bigger discussion on depression, we can. Based on how many people view this, I don't know. But I also want to hit on Aaron because I've been there. In my past life, I would like to say I was a teacher, and it's not what I do currently because currently I work on campaigns and work on branding for name brand products. But when I was a teacher, you could basically pick where you wanted to teach, and it's hard to teach people who are closer to your age. I myself taught middle school, okay? Now, I also know people who left college who taught high school. It's difficult to teach high school. It's difficult to teach college. And the reason is that people your age tend to, or close to your age, tend to press you. They tend to do things to throw you off your ball game. When you're a high school teacher and you are good looking, you have to either fight off the males or fight off the females, depending on whether you're a male or a female. That is always how it goes. Okay, I knew a lady who was blonde hair, blue eyed, and every time she walked into the classroom, the boys would just do anything and everything to get her attention, and she spent so much time trying to get them attention that some of the people that weren't getting attention felt overwhelmed because they might have been lost, but the attention can't be given to them because of the fact that you have a squad of people who feel like they're owed that attention, they're entitled to that attention. Now, being a male teacher is also hard because you have the females who do the same thing, okay? You have the guys who feel like they could be your best friend, And you have the females who love looking at you, who drool over you, and do all that kind of stuff. I was able to mitigate most of that by teaching middle school. Now, I still had a few of the female students who liked being around me, but my main goal was basically mentoring uh, young males or young boys to be better, to accept the challenge of what it is to go into high school. So, with that said, I feel bad for Aaron because it's not easy trying to be a professor. People who are probably 2 or 3 years younger than you, or even people older than you, because there's all ages going to college. 60-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 40-year-olds. A lot of people are rebranding their life, and it's not easy to always teach people who are around your age or older because they're always trying to throw you off your ball game. You have to, people like Aaron have to realize that when you become a teacher, you no longer, your concern is no longer being everyone's friend. Okay? Your concern is to give these people the knowledge that is essential for them to start a new career or start the next phase of their life. Now, I also know people who are teachers who just don't care. Okay? They will tell you that they don't care. When I was in school, I had a few teachers who basically said, "We don't care if you don't do the homework because I still get paid." Now, that happens in almost every career sector, but when it's a teacher telling you that they don't care if you get the knowledge that you need to carry on in life, it's kind of detrimental. And you kind of have to re-strategize, where do you go from here? How do you take these courses? But at the same time, if you are a teacher who is trying to reach out to kids, and especially if you're teaching honors or AP, those kind of things, you have to be very careful because you don't want to be the kid's friend, but you want them to grasp the knowledge that is needed so they can have that credit before they go into college, so they can start up ahead of the curve instead of behind the curve. Okay, so I do respect that. I do respect that Aaron is trying to figure it out, and it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy the first time or second time that he's trying to find this out. As for Zoey, my opinion on Zoey was like, this episode was way too much on Zoey. Now, I know that there are creatives, whether they be on YouTube, whether they be for fashion, whether they be for music. A lot of times, this stuff gets stolen. A lot of times, some of this stuff is remixes. If you mix enough things together, you can get it to pass by. Most notably, we looked at Pharrell stealing a beat that Marvin Gaye made for Blurred Lines. Now, for some people, they would have said that doesn't sound like the Marvin Gaye beat, but for me, it did. It sounded just the same thing. And when I first heard Blurred Lines, I thought like, wow, you're really brazen to pretend like this is the beat that you made. But knowing Pharrell and knowing people who come from the area where Pharrell is from, a lot of those beat makers do that. They take a song or a beat and they just remix it to a point where they hope the actual listener is not discovering what beat it really came from originally. We've seen a lot of Jay-Z songs or previous beats from the 70s or the 80s, even the 60s. A lot of rap artists do that. You've seen YouTube, people stealing each other's idea and concepts. The problem is, once you speak it into air, depending on how people internalize it, it's basically gone. Once they internalize it, they have the ability to mix and match it to their own fitting. So it's hard to put a price on that. Unless you have something written down, like a score for music or like a book, it's easier to say, well, this person plagiarized my stuff because of all the things that you have to do to get your copyright protection. But because we're now in a world that uses a lot of technology and we get a lot of our news via media or social media, a lot of our concepts are often stolen. So Zoey, from my perspective, has to realize that things like that will happen. This is why doing drawings and stuff like that at work, you can't do it. You just can't do it. I myself, when I do campaigns or when I do something for a name brand company, I work from the privacy of my house, not in an office anywhere, because of the fact that I know that there's no one here in my house that can steal my ideas, can steal my concepts. So whatever concept that I come up with is originally mine. And I always make sure that I have backups to know that everything is originally mine. And I also put my little signal symbol in the corner or within my design, so that way I can tell, like, oh, I made that, and you're just copying what I made. But other than that, I would say that this episode was way better than the last two. I'm giving this episode basically a 6 out of 10. I wish I could get it a 7 or 8. I would have if they would have digged a little bit deeper with Aaron, because that's actually kind of funny and interesting. And if they had digged a little bit deeper with Jazz, because I think that's a story that needs to be told, so we can internalize that, sometimes it's okay to admit that you're not okay. But I would like to thank you for listening. Like I said, this has been Analytical Perspective. I am Farrah Moses, and I will catch you later.